All right, welcome to On the Record with OPD. Of course, we have Chief LeRonne Armstrong, and as we promised, we did get the chair of the police commission, but also the president and CEO of EOYDC here in Oakland, Regina Jackson. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it tremendously. Let's go straight into it. You have two hats. You wear many hats, but a lot of people know you for those two different things. How do you balance both being the chair of the police commission and, of course, your very important position at EOYDC, which is very important to a lot of people in the community?
How do I balance? I hope I balance. One of the most important things about serving the East Oakland Youth Development Center is that it is in the highest and most underserved community, so they need the most. So that's a kind of 6-7 day a week job, and I love it, and I've been doing it for 27 years. But I also think that the information that I've learned over time from the community, from our families, from our children, has helped position me to recognize the important program development, training opportunities, and reform-minded thinking that the Oakland Police Department needs. And so that's honestly why I chose to go on to the commission. I wanted to keep my family safe after they left our building.
And that's very important because you have not just your personal bloodline family, but you basically have all the people of East Oakland. They're East Oakland, West Oakland, you're branched out very far.
This is true. And so, you know, when you talk about balance, I'm not sure that I'm great at balancing. I tell other leaders, you know, sometimes don't watch what I'm doing, because I pick up the phone at midnight. If a kid calls, I pick up the phone at 2. I will go pick somebody up. And, you know, that doesn't allow for a lot of barriers or self-care. But it's the only way I know. And it's why I wanted to also give my time to the commission, because I knew that police reform was going to be critical.
And talking about the commission, you've been doing it since the beginning. You've been there from the very beginning and continue to go through that situation. And it looks like there's a brand new day for the city of Oakland. With the new chief and you, there's a better relationship, it looks like, between the police commission and the police office, or excuse me, the Oakland Police Department. But also, I think, is it because of also your community involvement, you think that brings it about it as well?
Well, I'm just one person. You know, I've been in the chair for 3 years now, and I'm serving one of the 2 4-year terms. I believe that as a manager, that, you know, if what you want to see is change, you have to support the efforts that you see. I believe that the Police Chief Armstrong has a unique and sophisticated understanding of what police reform has to look like and what department leadership has to look like. That gives me confidence. But I also understand that when you want people to work hard and you want them to introduce changes to culture and programs and the way the department has historically operated, you can't beat them over the head with it. You need to understand what is your vision, what are your movements, what are your thoughts, and celebrate those that make sense, challenge those that may not, and then let the data bear out what progress looks like. You know, I'm really hoping that this chief can get us out of the NSA, and his acute focus on much of NSA just over the last few years has moved us into a more progressive leadership stance.
And you spoke of leadership and reform, and Chief, you've already started with that. You took the new class that just graduated to the EOYDC. Why was that important?
Well, it was about introducing new officers to community, right? That they had went through 26 weeks of training. So it really focused around learning how to be a police officer. But then during that time, I thought it was also important that they understand the importance of building relationships, the understanding that you don't have to do this alone, that there is community that are here to support you, that want to see a new generation of police officers. And so as we introduce a new generation, it really starts with saying, be open to community, be accepting of people's help, understand that you're not alone in this effort to address violence, to make a community safe. And I thought, what better place to do that than a place with such history as EOYDC, and someone that wears so many hats, like I call her Chair Jackson, you can call her Commissioner Jackson. But I thought it was really impactful for them to hear even the history of her building, how everything in the building had meaning, right? From the art, the murals that were on the wall, how all of those things were done, with the greatest of intention. And so I think, sometimes as police officers, you start to feel over time that you are the only one really focused on public safety, that you are not getting the support that you want. And I thought it was before they even indulged into this career that they saw firsthand that here is somebody that is in the most challenged area in the city, that hears gunshots in her building, that comes to work and there are bullet holes in the side of her building. So she is impacted every day by violence, and her kids are. But she still wants to see better policing. She still wants to see police officers that are not afraid of community, that are willing to connect with community. And that's why I thought it was important to bring those two together. And I was, sat and had a chance to hear some of her messaging. And I've seen how focused our officers were, and how they were listening intently to the things that she was saying to them. And I think in that moment they recognized that this is the change that we're talking about. To be open to hear that there are community warriors too out there, right? People who are working day to day and they don't have uniforms, they don't have badges, they don't have guns, but they still work for a safe community.
And getting the officers right immediately into the community, into the center, was very important because they got a first-hand knowledge. I know they toured around with you. We stood back and watched and just let you carry the show. What was the reaction? Were there some questions? Were there some conversations during that tour?
Well, first, thank you, Chief Armstrong, for bringing them over. There are a lot of nuggets in our community, fantastic community centers. They had lots of questions, but they also were a little surprised to hear the trajectory of my experiences, what, who it is that works alongside me in terms of the team of people that I work with at the East Oakland Youth Development Center, the fact that young people lead programs and that we think that that's a good thing. And a couple of the officers actually knew some people that had come up through the organization. But I think the thing that was most critical was the questions, because they were trying to understand, they were trying to kind of connect, and they were, I think sometimes people have a misunderstanding about the commission itself. Like we are some, unsophisticated, unprofessional folks that are in charge of OPD. Well, actually, nothing could be further from the truth. There are some commissioners that have hailed from the communities like the one that I serve, but all of us have critical experience in some component that policing does. And so I think that it was really important for, those officers that are like, freshly on the ground to get the fact that you don't know where all the nuggets are. So let's begin to connect those dots for you and see that people like myself are approachable, whether it's as a commissioner or as a community leader, and that we expect a lot from them. And mostly it has to do with social and emotional understanding and support, because we know that the communities that are most traumatized are the most in pain, and oftentimes that comes out in expletives that are being directed at the police who are trying to help them. But when you are in such pain, sometimes the ways in which you explain your circumstance don't come out as eloquently as people might like. So I wanted the officers to understand it's not about you. So don't get caught up in reacting to what somebody's telling you just because it's not framed the way you want to hear it. Listen through the pain.
And I've noticed you work together on two uplift officers at times, talking about when a chief has an accommodation for someone. You've also acknowledged it during a police commission meeting. Is that very important?
Oh my God, it's critical. I mean, one of the things that I know that we have to recognize for any system that is going through transformative change is that there are going to be a lot of people that aren't for it, and a lot of resistance. And when people are executing in an excellent way in the midst of so much change, that makes it more challenging. So you have to lift it even higher. You know, a lot of times people say, well, that's their job. It's like, guess what? We all have jobs, but do we all want folks to just do it satisfactorily? I think not. I want excellence. And that means that people need to understand and be appreciated when they demonstrate excellence so that they continue it, that they model for others, and quite frankly, you know, maybe it will empower some of those other more satisfactory officers to step up.
And one thing I know that I've always preached about is community. Everyone is part of the community, whether you live here, you work here, or you come here for play, recreation, or just to spend time here in Oakland. You're part of that community. And Saturday, Chief, you did just that, leading the Stand Up for Safe Oakland. Chair Jackson, of course, we saw you up front, very happy, smiling, and enjoying the moment. Chief, talk to me about that. Why was that important to have your community brought together for that situation?
Well, it was so important for people to know in this moment, when we talk about public safety and we talk about where we are in the city of Oakland, when we have 72 homicides, far too many people have lost their lives in this city to gun violence, far too many lives taken too soon. It was time to say that this is not just a police responsibility, this is not just a Department of Violence Prevention responsibility, and it's also not just a community. It is all of us working collaboratively together to come out with safe outcomes for people. And so really Saturday, it was my effort to say, ask community to stand up for a safe Oakland, because I think one thing, despite politics or despite philosophical disagreements, I think what we all can agree is that we want to live in a safe city, that we want our community to be safe. We want people to not have to fear crime as they walk out their doors. And I think asking community to be a part of that solution, I thought was critical. And I thought Saturday, that was my effort to say, community, let's do this together. Let's do this together, and let's honor those that have lost their lives. Let's say to them that their lives weren't lost in vain, that we're going to work together and do better. And I just appreciate all the community members that came out to support, all the great speakers. Recognize that the 71 names that we read off, because we often are talking about numbers, but we took the time to acknowledge the names of the people who have lost their lives. And that's what's so important to families, that their loved ones are not forgotten. And so I appreciate Chair Jackson and her partnership. I think, like you said, she wears dual hats as not only the head of EOYDC and the chair of the police commission, but also as a community leader. So many young people have come through her building and have reached out to her for her mentorship and leadership, that her impact, goes across the city and some would say even across the nation. She has kids working throughout the country.
She has kids working at the White House.
Yes.
Let's just be honest. I learned that the other day. So,
yeah.
Yes.
And so as a chief, you try to be someone that is open to community leaders. That leadership does not just have to come at the chief level. That I am open to community leaders that want to partner, that want to go out and use their platforms as well to have influence in community. We don't have to arrest our way out of this problem. We can build relationships with people to help them make better decisions, to make our community safer. I often tell people the easiest way for Oakland to solve this violence problem is for us to encourage those that pick up guns to put them down and not use them in our community. That's not an easy message to be able to translate, but there are some that can. There are some that have influence with people. There are some that people trust, and that when they speak, people listen. And Regina Jackson is one of those people. And so by her being in that position, you want to utilize those relationships. You want to utilize her influence to be able to reach people that I probably can't reach as police chief. And so that's what partnership is about. That's what being open as a police department. That's what cultural change is about. Accepting that I don't need to do this alone. And that accepting that there's a different way to accomplish this goal. And that's what we're going to try to do here now. That's what we did on Saturday. It's just the beginning.
Chair Jackson, 2 questions for you. What was your reaction to Saturday, and what are you hearing from the community about Saturday?
So I didn't have expectations. Chief said, I'm doing this. I thought it was a great idea. My initial reaction was one of pride, really, to see all the folks that did show up and, were well coordinated, especially with the symbols of the carnations and all. But as was captured by somebody on camera, I cried a bit too. So, what happens is that when you hear victims, and I've seen, so much over my 27 years leading EOYDC, that you do have to humanize the victims. And when those names were spoken, it was a very saddening moment, because we know that none of them had to be lost. And so in terms of the response from others, people that didn't make it, said, oh my goodness, I wish I'd been there. For those that did make it, they were so proud. During the reading off of the questions, one of my kids, he's a doctor now, just came up behind me and gave me a big hug. And I hadn't seen him in a couple years, and he's, you see them all decked out in their doctor garb, right? And it was very warming for him to give me comfort that he knew I needed, but also to think he is in this medical pandemic responding to people 24/7 and took the time to come out and be a part of that acknowledgement. That unification is what we need most.
And a lot of people feel their voices are not heard. And this was an opportunity to have people's voices heard. Mm-hmm. Chief, you're going to go on a conversation, conversations towards solutions tour, so to speak, hitting a lot of neighborhoods. Is that the next part? Is that a way to bring more people out?
Yeah, we started last night. Saturday was not just about having an event and bringing people together. It was the beginning of having conversations towards solutions. It was about how can we sit down with community and hear from people about how they're feeling in their communities, how they're being impacted by violence, how we can work together. The people who know the best is the people who experience it every day. They can tell you, hey, if you do this, this would really be helpful. And last night at Arroyo Viejo Park, there were 30 some odd community members that came out and said to me, hey, Chief, there are some small things that you can do, that tell officers to be nicer when they drive down the street. Invest in more community engagement. We want to get to know our officers more. I think Regina just talked about the ability to humanize police officers, right? The ability to see them in a non-sort of law enforcement environment. Can we just see that they're people who actually care about what they do, that are open to community, to be a part of the community? And so learning from community about how we could do better, how we could be better in a community, how we could build trust with them, how they would feel much more comfortable being around us, was something that I thought was important. It was an important conversation to have, but also it's important that people understand operationally how you function. You would be surprised, and even last night, about how much information people didn't know about the police department. That means that we have to do a better job. We have to do a better job of communicating with our community, sharing information, utilizing social media, and utilizing our own website. And so those were things that community brought to us. But you don't hear that if you don't get on the ground, if you don't get into the communities, hear directly from people. We'll be going around the city, beat after beat, sitting down having just small conversations. Not about having big, large discussions where we can't get a lot of things done. Let's have small, intimate conversations where people can actually help you solve problems. That's what we did last night.
And if I can throw a kind of a throwback moment of history, in the early 1980s, I served on the board of the East Oakland Youth Development Center. And the board chair was none other than Police Chief Joseph Samuels. So I kind of grew up connecting to officers who were caring about community. Now, the job has gotten so challenging, I haven't seen people serving on boards in a minute. But I think that this kind of approach is returning to the the leadership and officers in the community, building relationships, building social capital amongst those that can help them with their jobs the most. We see what's going on. We know where the gaps are. We know oftentimes who the kids are, the background of their circumstances that may, make them, take movements to criminalize. But the thing about it is, we're not moved to call you up and say, hey, here's this. But if we know you and trust that you're going to do something, good with the information, that you're going to, have a back and forth with us, that you're going to build, then we're happy to share. Happy to share.
And we talked about how community get involved with your situation. Chair Jackson, how do you recommend people getting involved in these kind of situations, taking back and reclaiming the streets in the city of Oakland?
Yes, well, coming out of this pandemic, just re-engaging in general is a little challenging, right? But I believe that if people want to be helpful, that I don't know if you have a sign up or something, if people want to be a part of these conversations, to offer to host them or to attend them, make that accessible. Everybody's not going to navigate the website. So, we probably have to send out to email addresses, organizations, and otherwise. But it's about wanting to positively contribute, right? So there are going to be some more community, the safe streets is not the thing I'm thinking of, but it's about getting to know where the hot spots are, being able to identify them and point them out, but also let's check in on our neighbors. Mm-hmm. Let's find out, hey, are you good? Are you okay? Is there hunger challenges here? Can we connect you to some resources? Oftentimes people don't know how to ask for help, so they struggle in silence. So we need to be doing more communication, and it starts with community people reaching out.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up here really quickly because we've had a nice 24 minutes, 25 minutes, which is a good conversation. But Chair Jackson, is there anything else that you want to say or add that I did not talk about here so far? I'm sure there's a lot because we could do hours upon this, but in this small amount of time?
It saddens me where we are in terms of our violence, okay? And this seems like a lot of desperation and, inability to resolve conflict. But I want Oaklanders, don't move away, don't run from the challenge. Oakland has resurged and, kind of reinvented itself all throughout my life. We need to have a space where activism can be productive and where volunteerism can be selfless and where police reform is demonstrated by the individual officers. Basically doing their job when the chief is not paying attention, modeling the very best of concern, of understanding, and responsiveness. And I continue to be dedicated to that. I'm going to keep on Chief Armstrong. We're going to keep talking and keep connecting and keep trying to figure out what else can be done. But I do applaud his work. He was with us for the Peace in the Streets inaugural, which was a beautiful mural demonstration all throughout International Boulevard, and actually made sure that some of his officers could contribute artwork. That's kind of different thinking. And as I said before, I think that the chief has a sophisticated understanding of what police reform needs to look like from a department leadership perspective. It's not all roses. He's got some officers that are working against him. He's got resistance. So it's not just external, it's internal too. We need to be supporting all the good things. We need to be flagging the challenges and not just bash the challenges, offer solutions, hopefully in the midst of these intimate conversations, so that the post-pandemic success story that the city of Oakland is able to tell will help inform our next chapter.
Conversations towards solutions, Chief. You have anything else to say?
Well, no, I thank you for being here. I thank you for taking the time. I think when we have conversations like this, it shows us that there's hope. There's hope and there's opportunity in front of us. And so I hope that community knows that, we will do this together, that it won't be the police department alone. It won't be community alone. But I think if we have the shared goals of having a safe Oakland, we can do it together. And leaders like you inspire me. They bring, they show me that so many people care in our community, and we just, as a police department, need to do a better job getting out and standing next to the people who care, the people who want to do the work. And there's so many organizations throughout this city doing great work, and I honor that work. And as a police chief, you have my commitment to continue to what I see as identifying as change agents, people who want to see something different. I think we all want to see a safe Oakland. You have my commitment. We'll start by having conversations that come up with solutions. All right, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair Jackson. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys back here in 2 weeks. Have a great day.